package that doesn't harm the economy.
Before the break, we asked you, who do you think is the biggest winner in a debt ceiling extension that's ongoing? Right now, the winner is congressional Republicans with 56%, followed by no one with 33%. We thought no one might win. We're talking about the politics. We're back with the panel. David, what about how this shapes up for the president and how this is going to play out politically after whatever happens over the next day and a half?
So if we can get out of here August 2nd with a deal and we don't default and we don't have any crisis, I think the president scores a victory of sorts because the economy and the unemployment rate are bad enough. And allowing this to go forward and create another crisis is a big problem for his re-election. However, it's not an Osama bin Laden was killed type of a victory where it really was a big deal, it reflected well on his leadership, and you saw a nice big poll bump. Because all we do now is get back to the argument over jobs and the economy. I think the Speaker ultimately did a decent job, at least to this point in time, of holding his caucus together while getting us somewhere towards a compromise. And I think even Senator McConnell and Senator Reid come out of this in terms of deal makers, and it's really interesting the roles they played with Vice President Biden in helping us at least get to the point we are today.
Wow, you give everybody a cookie.
I give everybody a cookie, but remember...
I mean, this is the teacher that you always wanted.
Well, yeah, but remember, it's because they're all playing to different constituencies. This is not Boehner versus Obama, and you're going to have only one can win. All right, the president is playing to a national constituency and has a re-election issue. The Speaker had his first real test as a leader of a very new and exuberant sort of conference, and it's like, could he get us to a conference and hold it together? And Reid and McConnell had to come in and play cleanup, and could they work together to get us across the finish line?
Right, and that's yet to be seen. Steve, if Speaker Boehner has this, whatever comes over from the Senate, and he has to pass it with more Democrats than Republicans, is he politically too wounded, I mean, in his own caucus?
Yes, that would be a huge problem for Speaker Boehner. I think if he had more Democrats...
Is it a reality? Is it a possibility?
Look, I'm not sure. I think a lot depends on what we hear about the level of defense cuts in this first wave of cuts that is apparently still being hammered out. If it's such that you have people like, you know, the 40-plus people on the House, Republicans on the House Armed Services Committee and others who are hawks, who bail on the Speaker, you know, there's a real question as to whether he could even, at that point, get the majority of his own caucus. There's talk today that maybe that's not possible, and you have this cobbling together a coalition.
Even up against this Tuesday deadline where the economy's
I think in this case, I think there were many House Republicans, including people in the 218 that voted to pass the Boehner plan, who were not happy about having to cast that vote. There remains deep suspicion about this bill, the policy in this bill generally, and beyond that. I mean, you go back to the 2010 elections, if Tea Partiers have won on substance, and we're talking about spending and the kind of things that the 2010 election suggested we would be, they've lost entirely on process. This is what the 2010 election was supposed to avoid, and here we are less than 48 hours before this is going to be decided. Nobody knows what's in the final bill. People are passing it. You know, it is more complicated than Enron accounting.
Charles?
But they lost on process because our constitutional system is designed so that you can't govern controlling half a branch of the government. It's simply not done. I think the president, if this is avoided, he doesn't decay and he doesn't lose. He didn't show any leadership here. It'll be neutral. Boehner, I think if he gets 60% of his caucus, he'll be okay. The winner is the Tea Party. They have changed the debate in the country. I think they ought to do what George Aiken advocated in the worst of days of the Vietnam War, declare your victory and go home. There'll be another fight a year from now. Obama is losing it, and I think that's where the big payoff will be, and that's when the country will decide what it wants to do about debt and also about the size of government.
A.B.
Well, we're not going to have to wait a year for another big fight. So the American people we've averted default, but the American people have got to get used to government on the brink because we're having an appropriations battle in September. Our current funding for the government expires on September 30th. That will be a massive brawl. There will be more short-term stopgap measures. Lots of talk about shutting the government down. Lots of midnight oil burning and shouting. And
so
that
I asked Senator Kyle about
this.
I asked Senator Kyle about this on Fox News Sunday, and I said, does the Republican Party risk being the party that's always
in crisis,
going up against the cliff? And he said sometimes it takes going up against the cliff to get the ship to move, essentially is what he said.
Well, I think everyone can look forward to that in the beginning of the fall as we move into the super committee trying to come up with bipartisan entitlement reform, which has never happened in this town with all the blue ribbon commissions that we've seen come and go with great frequency. So we are going to be at the close to shutdown from now on.
But that is the purpose of this trigger, in theory, this punishment, that if this committee can't get it done, that these circumstances are so dire for both parties that, hey, you know what, we really got to get this one done.
Well, let's see if it turns out to truly be a balanced trigger, and let's see how the deal shapes up. Just on this question of the Speaker, from my reporting, he has really strengthened his hand, and that he has shown the people, even who can't vote with him, that he's been honest throughout the negotiations, that what he says to them behind closed doors is what he's doing with the other negotiators behind closed doors when they're not there. They trust him, and he probably pulls out, in the leadership population, at least 100 votes, and then another 40 people who just want to stand with him because they want to divert default. And I think he's going to get more Republicans than Democrats.
Okay, so let's just play hypotheticals here. Let's say the Senate passes this with large majorities, 75-25. The House, what's your number? Down the road.
I honestly have no idea. I think a lot, I mean, I don't mean to cop out, but I think a lot of it depends on the details that we just don't know yet. I mean, I think it passes, it squeaks through.
That's called a cop-out. Next.
Steve, by the way, just got me off the hook. I now have cover for my cop-out.
I'm 0 for 2?
No, that was with the winners and losers. But I actually think if you get a strong bipartisan majority in the Senate, it sends a message to the House, first of all, that there is a lot of Republican and Democratic support for this, and that you get a lot of Republicans in the House who at least say, we can't do this again. There's no appetite. We won't bear any fruit by continuing to fight.
Number.
In the House? I'm at 140, 150 Republicans.
I got your number, right? 140-80?
I'm 140-80.
Okay, hold on.
With a huge margin of error.
It passes with 235 votes.
Record that. That's it for the panel, but stay tuned to see why the debt debate might mirror a Hollywood script.